our country here.
Political violence, which always take ethnic angles, began in 1991-92 during the advent of multi-party democracy in the country. And for the first time in the history of Moi's rule, he came face to face with resistance. I want to start by looking at the perpetrators of ethnic violence in Kenya. If you were to look at the Akiumi report and the names mentioned, you compare them with other reports like the Kikulacho report, Justice Waki's report, and you look at the names of those who have been mentioned. Basically, they are the same people.
We want to bring back the culture of due process, accountability, transparency in public office. Corruption will now cease to be a way of life in Kenya.
In 2002, it was now the end of President Moi's 2 terms. There was renewed hope that the transition may allow Kenyans to elect a different crop of leaders. This didn't actually happen. They were just the old leaders in different political parties.
The underlying general causes of what happened in 2007 have to do with all the historical injustices, marginalization and impoverization of Kenyans.
The expectations for democracy had been so increased in the previous 5 years. The democratic election of 2002, 5 years of democratic space, expectations that the election in 2007 would be a good election.
We anticipated some level of problem, but we did not expect the sort of the blowout that occurred. That took us by surprise.
2007 actually was a crossroads in the sense that it also expressed very much the end of the road for Kenya as it was since 1963.
There are always problems in any election, but the corruption, the level of corruption in Kenya is unforgivable, it's bad.
2007 was the most corrupt election I've ever observed in this country. The amounts of monies that exchanged hands were colossal sums. So there was huge uncontrolled expenditure that actually bred a lot of corruption.
It is vital that we prosecute the masterminds of the violence as well as those who committed it. If, however, we end up not doing so, then the message would be clear to the wicked ones amongst us.
The 2007 elections were very important in conveying that message that corruption eventually does destroy a society. It leads to people being beheaded on the streets. And it conveyed that message not only to ordinary Kenyans, but also to donors who certainly were not aware of that and had not made those links up till then.
Unless there is some movement to hold people accountable for the violence last time round, then there'll be no deterrent to people doing it again next time. And that is a fundamental reform.
I'm a human resource manager of Kenya. I employ presidents, MPs, or anyone. That's who I am.
So
yes.
That's how it's going?
Going. I'm going this way. I'll go this way.
And which way is the country going?
But the country is not moving. Yes. You don't confuse me. The country is not going anywhere. We are here to stay.
Bunge, mahakama ya kisheria, majaji, rais, polisi, people, brothers and sisters. We live amongst each other. Our forefathers and mothers taught us how to protect each other, value and share. Conflicts were there, but no. Certainly not like this. Shuruti zako na majukumu yako. Je, umepiga roho yako mnada wapi? Protectors, lawmakers, leaders and friends. Look in the mirror. Yes, look closer. Then take a good look at what you see. And remember what one narrator once said. Kikulacho, ki nguoni mwako. That what eats you is within you.
Parliament as an institution for a long time, particularly under the regimes before 2002, was basically an emasculated body. You know, it just bowed to the bid of the president.
So the president then got the powers of the head of government and the head of state. So there was no balancing of power at the top level.
We were a country that had one broadcaster, and the top story was always, Mheshimiwa Rais, the president did this today. And so you have a people who have been trained in a system of creating demigods out of the politicians.
You grow up knowing that this one guy is equals to Kenya and Kenya is equals to this guy. And, we grew up, we were a generation that never knew anything else other than the president.
Serikali ya mzee inatambua kwamba wabarikiwa ni walio masikini. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall go for funerals. Mzee akisema kwamba wabarikiwa ni walio vile mzee alisema.
To a certain extent, where we've gone wrong in this country with our parliamentarian system is that many of the incumbent politicians have had to buy their way to get their seat. When I say buy, not necessarily with cash, but in many cases with cash, but with favors, with promises. Many of them get into the House with so much debt.
Now, if you spend 200 million or 50 million in the campaign, there is no doubt that you try to get that money back. Somebody, in fact, told us that the best thing we can do while we are here is to make hay where the sun shines, eat. In fact, somebody told me that we could eat to such an extent that by the time we get out of here, we will not even be able to recognize ourselves in the mirror.
because we do not have particularly strong social security systems, members of the public have come to rely on asking or seeking handouts from politicians. Many politicians actually, jokingly refer to themselves as the ATM, the local ATM, automated teller machine, always having to give out money.
But we have to put a social net in place in this country one way or the other. And this is why I am particularly critical about what I consider unnecessary expenditures in the public service. And I simply don't accept that when you've got so many people living below the poverty line, you need to have 41 ministries.
Has our constitution enslaved us, Wanjiko? Has it been used as an instrument of oppression rather than liberation? If the people in power disregard the principles, is the constitution or any constitution worth the paper it is printed on? Remember, good people, a constitution gives you the right to pursue happiness. But you, Wanjiko, you must get hold of it first.
The benefit of what we have gone through is not just the document we are going to get. I don't even think the document is the most critical thing that we are going to get. But we've had this opportunity to talk and discuss, and people now know so much more about what a constitution is.
Please listen to me. I'm going to give the Attorney General an advance copy of the Constitution.
As the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, I am conscious of my duty to promote, protect, and uphold the rule of law.
The Attorney General is the legal officer for the government. He's there to advise the government, and he is the one that prosecutes cases for and on behalf of the government.
His position as a lawyer of the country makes him powerful. Powerful in the sense, first, that he can prosecute anybody, apart from the president. Charles Jonjo understood that power, and that made Charles Jonjo the second most powerful person after Kenyatta. People feel the Attorney Generals have failed in their mandate for one. They have protected people who should not have been protected, so that they have refused to enforce the criminal law against powerful people.
If you look at the structure of the judicial system where corruption is rampant, if you look at the Attorney General whose visa we have taken away on grounds of corruption, if you look at the entire structure, there is in essence a sort of system of impunity that is set up to ensure that the most senior officials are not held accountable.
All these militias that are there are symbolic or are an expression of the decay of the state. When Mungiki comes up, when you look at the history of Mungiki, it started off as a self-defense mechanism in the Rift Valley around the clash areas because the state was not providing security.
I think the Mungiki is sort of a microcosm of the larger problems that the youth in Kenya face today. Joblessness, a feeling of being left out in the decision-making of the country.
They were very, very quickly co-opted by the state, by individual politicians within the state.
Our organization is just an organization like any other. We have following in the police force, we have people in the military, in the civil service.
When you become accustomed to sort of making money easily off politics and you're not making, and the elections are over and your usefulness in that regard is over, then you move into extortion. And again, the extortion sort of starts, well, if there's crime in the area, let us manage crime in the area. So people willingly pay, just like we pay for private security companies.
Every time a criminal activity takes place, the police are all over the media saying the killings were carried out by Mungiki, Mungiki are extortionists. How can they continue saying that we have people out there who are extorting money from the public? They have failed.
Many of us as Kenyans don't blink when police kill people. Because as long as the police tell us that these people are criminals, we say, fine, let them get off the road, get off the streets. We have accepted as Kenyans a police force that can kill anybody on the allegation by the police themselves, who are the most untrusted institution in the country. We've given them a sense of complete impunity.
Things started happening. Beheadings were carried out and attributed to some of our members. Young people started missing, disappearing after being arrested by police officers. Others will be found murdered in forests, in the morgue.
We know cases where people have actually bought their freedom through the intimidation of the police. So those cases are there and we have them. We've got the cell numbers, we've got the names of the police officers who are involved in this particular racket, and they all belong to one squad, the Kwekwe squad.
Kengara was the first person to advertise the names of the police officers in the Kwekwe squad. And this is when the government spokesman came out with all sorts of allegations that Oscar Foundation was funding Mungiki, Oscar Foundation was a wing of Mungiki, and they were going to deal decisively with him. The police spokesman says so. And that night, Kengara was murdered.
Kenya has a major problem of extrajudicial executions, and it's one which has not yet been adequately acknowledged and addressed.
Our police are the most, I believe they are the most underpaid. They are underpaid, and this contributes to corruption.
Some of the police accommodation was appalling. I mean, you'd find 50 families with one lavatory and that sort of thing. I mean, policemen living in their quarters.
So if the government wants to end corruption in the police force, let them pay the police officers.
Are you worried yourself about your own safety?
Yeah, you know, there comes a time then when you got to say that whatever happens, let it happen.
When an institution is corrupt, or the people who manage those institutions are corrupt or can be influenced, it means that we have lost the capacity for the rule of law. Small, hungry, poor people get to be punished, but the real people who commit crimes that undermine the rule of law and undermine democracy in this country get away with it.
there was the real damage that Goldenberg did to the economy, and it's something we took a very long time to recover from, and it literally just economically drove this country to its knees. In Goldenberg, we had almost the entire system of government working towards selfish objectives. Because of this continued failure of the law, of institutions, of the judiciary, of just about every other system, nobody had the confidence that you can stand up against this.
One day, the former president called me on the hotline and requested me to see him the following day at his Kabarak home at Nakuru at 7 a.m. I arranged Kenya shilling 3.5 million, which was in cash, my lord.
All of a sudden, during Goldenberg, the public started having fun with Kamlesh Patni. And I think he's a bit of a performer. So it almost became like this show.
Mungu asifiwe. Amen. Thank you, O Lord, our Father, for bringing these brothers and sisters from media.
It was really bizarre, even for the media, to observe the celebrity status that he developed. But it's very worrying. And it's part of this culture of that we've had for a while, where people appreciate seeing their leaders in big cars, and it excites them, and they chase them around. But that trend is changing. And following extreme suffering that people went through in the post-election phase, people are now getting angry when they see this kind of wealth.
Well, he turned up very unexpectedly. I got a warning phone call from Europe, where he was travelling at the time, and I sensed something was up because he asked me not to tell anyone else that he was going to be staying with me, without really explaining it all, talking about a naval vessel, talking about how the men in control, his ministers, his colleagues, had come to him and said, "It's us, you know, we are Anglo-Leasing." Well, it's jaw-dropping, isn't it? I mean, you've got the finance minister begging the head of the anti-corruption unit to stop investigating. You've got the justice minister trying to blackmail him into keeping silent. You've got a minister for internal security that appears to be the spider at the heart of their every web. You've got briefings with the president where he basically tells John to hold off and stop investigating. I mean, the level at which this scandal went, the complicity and the frankness of those exchanges, it's just jaw-dropping.
Anglo-leasing happened. By the time it was happening, we were dealing with a totally different scenario. At least by that time, there was a much more responsive citizenry, much more confident citizenry.
I can remember one thing I did one about corruption, whereby the John Githong was standing on top of the stone written corruption, and then saying no stone will be left unturned, and he's actually standing on a big stone, and he's a very small man. Nothing has changed much, but also a lot has changed in the sense that there's more light, there's spotlight on the government.
Some major scams have been revealed. It's a shame that when it happens and the people know, so little then is done.